Hey guys, it's Alex Williamson here, Secret History Living Inside Your Aquarium. It's real early in the morning. Been kind of up all night enjoying the snow. We don't get a ton here in the Northwest, um, but we get, a little bit sometimes, and this time we got a whole bunch. We actually had like all the food in the grocery stores got wiped out. It was almost like a zombie apocalypse or something going on. But what I wanted to let you know, probably won't be fish in this video, they're all sleeping still. What I wanted to let you know, hey Pete, how's it going? Was I just, rather than recording a video and updating it, I thought I'd just hop on here, say hi to anybody who's overseas and whatnot, or on the East Coast. But let me flip this around. So it's about, with the wind chill, it's about 20 degrees right now. And we got quite a bit of snow. It rained for 8 hours. We had really icy streets, like 2 to 3 inches thick of ice in some spots. And so that was almost like an ice storm, not quite as bad, but everything was icy because it got like 35 degrees yesterday after, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days of snow and stuff like this. So in the Northwest, we're not used to that. The last decade hasn't been like that. When I was a kid, we used to get these snowstorms, but lately we've had pretty warm winters the last 10 years, except for one or so. But what does this have to do with fish keeping? Yeah, and it's so quiet. You can just hear I mean, there's a little bit of wind, and that's what brings me to my next point, which is the trees here. Every so often, you'll just hear a pop, and you guys probably can't make it out, but there's another hill of houses over here usually, and that hill of houses. Oh, looks like a snow truck might be going by. Yeah, people are plowing the roads just to be nice, which is kind of cool. The city only has like, I don't know, 35 snowplows. But the whole point of this is that I think the power's going to go out. And even if the power doesn't go out, I always lose my internet stream because there's too many people on Netflix in my neighborhood. So with all this going on, people are going to stay home and just watch Netflix and chill, or not chill, watch Netflix and try not to chill. But as you can see, like these branches have something like 8 inches on them right now, plus the ice from before still, like it never fully melted on shady sides. And so, as you can see, this tree already like flopped over onto that poor car. So I told that girl not to park there, but the boughs are coming down, and if the ones up here come down, they're gonna smash that little Rav4. But we'll see. It's still coming down. We're not. Yeah, it is baby making weather. That's for sure. I bet there are going to be a lot of Seattle babies in 9 months from now. But yeah, it's pretty quiet. If you just one sec, and then I'll get to the fish part. You just kind of hear the wind going, and every so often I've been seeing purple and blue flashes. So that's how I know that, yeah, my power's probably going to go out pretty soon here. As this wind picks up and as it gets colder, we're having the Fraser River Valley north of us up in Vancouver, BC. We're getting an Arctic blast of air from Alaska and the Northern Territories, basically, and then moisture coming in from essentially like Hawaii, spiraling around back in a big weird like whirlpool shape. But what I wanted to say is reminder for cold places. If you're used to the cold, you probably don't need to worry about this as much. But for us, they don't keep up with the trees and things. We don't get a north wind very often. And with the weight of the ice and the wet snow and like the thaw ice, it gets pretty heavy after a while. And inevitably, we lose power. I think, yeah, power just went out over there too. There's a block you can kind of make out, like right over there, that lost it. So just little chunks of neighborhoods are losing power one by one, and eventually that causes a rolling grid thing. But yeah, so I just thought I'd check in. I'm gonna go back inside because it is freezing, quite literally. But yeah, the fish are all sleeping right now. I'm sleeping with the fishies tonight. But I just wanted to say a couple things. If you have fish tanks and if your power goes out, make sure to, this is for Northwesterners, especially when we're not used to, I mean, we get windstorms, but we're not used to the cold power outage. We usually get that in September, November, and then in the spring sometimes. But when the power goes out, first of all, if you can, wrap your tanks with something warm, put something over the top, stop evaporation, and then also, if you can, depending on the fish, you can turn off the filter, which you don't want to do with a lot of fish, obviously, but certain fish, like if you have bettas or um, gouramis, labyrinth fish, paradise fish, kissing fish, um, guppies will be fine, but basically turn off your pump for a while or turn down the air pump and you'll have less surface agitation, which was what the fish need. But if you're really trying to conserve heat and you're worried they'll freeze to death if it's a prolonged outage, that's a good way to go. So other than that, other than wrapping a tank with like a blanket, or actually what works well is cardboard or something like fluffy styrofoam, batting, filter floss, whatever. Wrap that around the tank, and then put cardboard or put the cardboard right around it so there's an air layer. Then put a blanket around it, and obviously lids if you have them, or glass, or cardboard if you don't have that. So do that, and then as I said, if it's starting to get cold in the house, obviously don't keep the doors open. If you have no way to heat the house uh, without the power. Some people have gas out here. Some people rarely have fireplaces in the city anymore. But I have a fireplace, luckily, so I can keep my fish up here warm-ish. And yeah, I know it's just like it's gonna be any minute now before the power goes out here. It always does. Um, so I just wanted to say hi and say stay safe. Don't go driving. It took my wife 2.5 hours to get home last night for 6 miles away at work. Like people are going insane. If you're friends with me on Facebook, you can see what I posted. There's literally pictures of stores in my neighborhood that are just out of everything. Like every artichoke, every cucumber, apple. I mean, weird food that nobody buys. Whatever radishes. Like all the radishes are gone. There's nothing. It looks like there was a zompocalypse for sure. So Seattle has lost its mind. Although we are a city of like 5 hills with like 500 feet of elevation each or something, and a lot of lakes and bridges, and they freeze real hard, and we have 35 plows. So there's also a couple pictures on there of some cars on their roof and stuff like that from the last few days just in my neighborhood. People being dumb thinking they can drive anywhere because they've got 4x4s. Yeah, super early stream, Alan. Not a normal stream, not a long stream. Just basically, they predicted snow. We're getting more than they predicted. And so I was going to give a couple more tips about if the power goes out or if it's really cold, how to keep your fish safe preventatively also. Valley Fish, hello. Alan, hello. Reptiles and Aquatics. JH from the Virgin Islands. Man, I'm envying you. My wife lived in Florida for a decade and she does not like Seattle right about now. She's from Ohio, so I think it brings up hard memories in the bitter Midwest. But yeah, I was gonna say, so other than the filter thing, don't do that if you have like hill stream loaches or you know panda loaches. Don't turn off their filter. But a lot of fish also, if they come down to temperature slowly, they actually have a way farther range than un than they're given credit for. So like a gourami in particular, that's a good example. A lot of people will say, "Oh, well, we keep them at 78 degrees, and they're happy at 78 degrees, don't get me wrong. But in China and in Korea, like the some of the paradise fish or kissing fish, they actually can go down to like 50 degrees um, in the winter and things like that. But it's a slow process, and fish, like with anything, they're kind of like the frog in the boiling pot, where you can turn the heat up or down. Down's better than up with fish, slowly, and they can tolerate it. Same with ammonia, nitrates, nitrites, but you just don't want to do it super quick or they can get super sick. So while I have bandwidth, let me turn on the tank real quick. Let me turn on the light here. But I'll keep spitting off a couple more facts just while I got you live, since why waste a live stream? And let's wake up some fish here. So let's see here. Why can't you guys see anything? What is going on? Oh, okay. I just had my thumb over the camera. Sorry about that. Okay, so we got a tank. We got a tank with some lights on right now. All the fish are sleeping. They're like, what the heck? But I thought I'd also point out that the plants are still in sleep mode. So you can actually see how this Ludwigia is going up in its sleeping formation. That allows it to lose less of its energy through thermodynamics. In the day, it needs light, and so it spreads out. In the night, it helps wind. It makes it less prone to getting eaten by bugs and so forth. And then also, I thought I'd point out we were supposed to be having a home show with our club, and they can't come out. Nobody can make it out to judge the tanks today. So it was kind of silly that I got everything ready. Also, another really weird thing, this tank I've never had stir by Corydoras in, and I have these half stir by half trilineatus cories. So I've been pulling them out each day that I see them, and I know my wife's not playing a prank on me. Uh, I don't think she would ever go to the fish store if she didn't have to. Also, you can see that a lot of my fish sleep on sticks and stuff, which is kind of cool. So this is like a Siamese algae eater. He always sleeps on his little ledge there. The pufferfish will do that too. You'll probably see the pufferfish sleeping somewhere around here. I don't know where they are. But, oh yeah, there's one right now. He just moved off his ledge when I came around the corner. But yeah, so another tip here, if you're going to lose power, which I know I will, as I said, uh, a good thing to do is to disconnect CO2 and just all those kind of things, because anything that's non-essential, so like CO2 and lights, if you're losing power, just unattach that, because everything's going to go haywire depending on what day it is, or what time of day it is, what type of system you have. Those lights are going to come back on. They might reset and then be on all night if you're sleeping. The CO2 might come back on, and maybe the lights don't. Maybe they're on a different cycle. It depends on how you have things wired. If it's all through one timer, hopefully your lights and CO2 are linked. But if they're not, that can happen. Mine's all manual. I did that to save money. But basically, like in this tank, I just did CO2 for 2 days because of the home show coming up. But other than that, this is a low tech tank. So, and I have a bunch of booths and other plants that I had in here just because the guppies, when they're hungry, if I don't feed them for 2 or 3 days, they'll actually pick the booths completely off, as well as the Siamese algae eater. I have been feeding the puffers though. They've been eating ram's horn snails like there's no tomorrow. That's what five puffers have done to. I think I had half a cup, literally, of ram's horn snails I threw in there and thought that would keep them busy for a while. Nope. So, anyways, other than those things, LOLO, little face, welcome and hello. Alan, I agree, they're adorable. Other than that stuff, I would say that you can prevent power outage issues by feed your fish before the power's going to go out if you know a storm's coming, but then don't feed them like in the 12 hours before a storm if you know it's coming, and that'll keep the ammonia down. Don't feed them while the power is off, then you don't have to uncover the tank. Don't wrap it airtight, obviously, that would be silly. And what reacts more strongly to CO2, Boost or Anubius? Um, I would say, ooh, that's a tough one. I would say if you have lots of CO2 and ferts, that Boost reacts. It'll get long and leafy like this. Um, Boost doesn't need highlight, and sometimes highlight makes it unhappy. But in this case, like this one's about to flower. Some of these are about to flower, and they were going to go back in the other tank across the room. Uh, but what you can have happen is with CO2 and highlight on those plants, you can get like that black beard that's growing there, and the little black spots that are on the Java fern back there. That's because the light was on them too intensely. Now, with other plants that don't need highlight, you get things like this Madagascar fern that's literally, that leaf is almost 3 feet long because this tank is over 2 feet tall, and that leaf, when I hold it straight up, goes from the bottom of the tank and comes up out of the top for another few inches. Uh, Also, by the way, my leopard danios, who are definitely the meanest creatures in this tank, other than the cribensis, but the cribs, they defend their little cave down here, and that's it. Uh, they're ready to spawn. She has, I guarantee you, 300 eggs in there. So if I move them to their own tank tonight, they'll spawn. So back to a couple more tips. If the power is going out, tell me the truth. Have you watched Grey's Anatomy? No, I actually haven't watched Grey's Anatomy. I've dated a girl who watched the show, and then my wife now. So that's what, like, the whole run of the show, basically. I've had it on in the background, and I know something about McDreamy, but that's it. And I know it's supposed to be in Seattle. Uh, and that frequently I look at it and I'm like, that's not a real cityscape that you could have here. That mountain's not in that place. Like they photoshopped that or whatever. Um, but yeah, so other than that, uh, don't be fertilizing your tank and stuff with the power out. Just like be smart with that stuff. If you do notice that your fish are breathing heavily, like hopefully you have your nitrates down low enough that your fish aren't about to kick it up just because the filter isn't working. Hopefully you can get uh, a little battery filter. Those are great if you can get one of the air pumps and then use sponge filters. Even a little bit of surface agitation makes a big difference. So even I've used an electric fan before that was waterproof at the tip of the fan, anyways. I just put the blades right into the tank and literally duct taped it years ago when I was a teenager to a tank and let it kind of churn and fling water around. Just one of those little portable, runs on AAA or A batteries. And that's enough agitation for like a 10 or 20 gallon tank. Now, if you have the bigger tanks, they're not going to lose their temperature as quickly, and they're also probably going to keep their oxygenation and whatever else is in the water, like ammonia, shouldn't run out or ramp up, whatever you want to think of it as. The good stuff running out or the bad stuff ramping up. Uh, too quickly. The bigger the volume of water, the longer that is going to take. And water takes a while to heat up or cool down, as you know, probably, I would hope. So, yeah, that's some of the stuff you can do to help. If you do notice, you take a test maybe 2 days in, if it's still out, 3 days in. Um, just make sure also that if the ammonia is going up, you can use dechlorinator, something like that. That will bind it for a little while. But the problem with that is some of the chloramines and things like that that cities use, it will not bond like normal chlorine salt is like molecularly, and so it binds to that molecule kind of like, let's Let's see here. We'll take my medicine Buddha, which my little good luck Buddha when I got struck by lightning, right? So pretend he's chlorine, blue chlorine, and this is a few molecules of prime. So prime basically does this, and then when it hits a fish gill, let's say this table's fish gill, right here, instead of going like this and ripping up and chemically pH wise to scarring the fish gill, it just goes dunk and it goes away. Now, when it's a chloramine, it can still do this, and after a few days, pieces start breaking off. So it may make it a little less harmful, but the chloramine's still gonna scrape up things, bioaccumulate in the. Let's put the Siddhartha back with my little wedding photo. Uh, if you do that, it's going to come back in a few days. So hopefully, after 48 hours after you resort to that, do some water changes, like some 50% water changes. So let's see here. Arrowhead Aquatics. Hey man, I have a 38-gallon planted tank running CO2 and a Fluval 3.0. Recently, it started as staghorn algae. Now I have like a green bluish algae that's growing. Any tips for that? Well, if it's a blue green algae, that would literally mean that it is a cyanobacteria. So cyanobacteria isn't algae at all. And if it's like a gooey mess or slimy on surfaces, like all over, and not the long stringy kind, you're going to want to treat with antibiotics, so erythromycin. Now, that can restart the cycle in your tank, and it can throw off the pH in your tank, but you got to do that to get rid of that junk. And what I would do is I would get some waterhead or some fish tank water and put some of your filter media. So whether that's bio filter floss or little beads, bio rings, or your filter floss, put some of that aside in some fish tank water that's at room temperature, or in another tank or something, and that will make sure that you have something to throw back in there when the lights come back, uh, or when I guess when your tank equalizes out. Because the other thing that can happen is if power goes out, you can get algae to grow because the ambient light is enough for algae, but not enough for your plants. So that's another reason why blacking out the tank isn't a bad idea, is because a blackout of the power could really throw off your algae and bacteria concentrations in the tank. Your fish will just kind of go into a suspended animation and sleep, most of them. They'll just hang out. That's what they do instinctually. So if it's the slimy, stringy stuff, I actually have a whole video on that called "How to Get Rid of Hair Algae Forever." Just kidding. You can't actually do that. Like, I think that's what it's titled. From about a month ago, if you go through my old videos. That's got a more in-depth explanation, but while we're talking, what I would suggest is turn up your CO2 as long as it's not too high already. Uh, Turn up your light intensity if it's not at the fullest, but keep that time short. And then what I've been doing that's helped, that I haven't read about, so I don't know if it works all the time, but lately I've been experimenting with it and it seems to really help. Sorry guys, I was out on the deck and now I'm all runny nose. But what you do is you black out your tank with, I use crepe paper over here, like black crepe paper. And then I just throw a blanket over it in the hours when the light isn't supposed to be on, and then for the 8 hours that it has light, the plants have an intense enough light that they are actually photosynthesizing, and the algae is. But the thing that you don't actually think about, or that I haven't really read very often, is that your algae is able to photosynthesize with like the lamp next to the tank, even if the lights are off. So your algae grows for 16 hours a day in your house or whatever. And you know, your plants get to grow for 8. So a lot of times people turn the light time down thinking that'll help, and really it's not helping the plants outcompete, because with algae you want your plants to outcompete the algae. And another way you can do that, so plants, they need phosphates to regulate their metabolism, but they also use a lot of carbon. So you can use carbon pads in your filter system when you have algae. Also helps filter out some of the actual algae itself, some of the little particles, the spores, but or not spores, but chunks of it that are cellular reproducing cells. And what I would do also beyond that is I would say that you gotta just kind of pick at it by hand, honestly, which is no fun. Let me show you in this tank real quick. Uh, this tank had a big old algae problem, and what I used was stop dosing it with its normal ferts. I took all the Anubias that was on here. That's what's floating in the other tank. You can still see I've got some of the algae back in here and stuff, but that's easily removed by hand. And if you saw it last time, there was literally algae everywhere 5 days ago. So what I did was I changed the lighting regimen, as said. I made sure that my shrimp weren't being fed anything, so they're eating what's left of the algae and getting in between things. Like down here, there's still quite a bit where I didn't pick at it. But I also wait for the clumps to get big enough to literally be able to like pinch them and pull out the algae by hand. So that is a help to me. Um, I like that's just a little trick. Let it grow longer than just like every day trying to fight it. But yeah, these little fish will pick at it too. And the shrimp, Siamese algae eaters, Corydora, guppies, mollies, platies, most live bearers will actually eat it if you don't feed them. They'll start munching on it just because that's what they do. In here, I have Malawa shrimp or Malawa shrimp. These guys are prolific and they reproduce like crazy. I also have Neocaridina in here. They reproduce like crazy and they also clean like crazy. They're like a monos. So I would give you those tips. Also, if you think your CO2 isn't getting out of there, out through the tank enough, just put it next to your filter. And just make sure your filter is flowing enough, whether that's a canister filter. If you have sponge filters, I mean, you could turn up the water pressure setting or the air pressure setting, sorry. But that's a little tougher. I would get a power head in that case. Just get like 100 gallons per hour power head. Point it at the wall, or you can modulate it so it's not going through that much, but just get a little current going. That will your plants will thank you for that anyways. Plants like a little bit of adversity, a little bit of punishment. It helps them grow, kind of like when we tear muscles, we rebuild new muscle in its place. You can see here, though, that I also get that black beard stuff. So too much flow, and I get this. This plant used to be over on the other side. That crypt was over there, and it was starting to get that, so I moved it. So placement's a big thing. I'm guessing the center of your tank's getting more algae because that's where your light is. Also, if you've got any plants that are high, just move them. Like if they're up next to the light, just move it so that it's not growing algae on stuff. So here, you don't want the light on like your really hard to reach places in between plants that are the finest plants. So I chose to put the light over this stuff because I can literally get my fingers in between that Rotala Ludwigia there, or is it Rotala? Yeah, it's a Rotala Ludwigia, I think, unless it's Rotala Repens Red or whatever. But regardless, whatever. Do that. Also, put faster growing plants in there if you can. So even if you don't want them in there, put some water lettuce or something in your tank to just suck out the nitrates, because your algae is growing on nitrates, phosphates, and light. Also, the macronutrients aren't as needed for the sorry, macronutrients are used by algae a little bit more than the micro, so you can still use your metal and stuff like that, your iron and things like that. Also, it doesn't hurt to do a dose of Flourish XL if you haven't been using that, but it's more bioactive carbon. Plus, it's stuff that plants use to grow, so they can outcompete that algae. Also, you can use root tabs that can help because bottom line is you want plants to be growing and you want the tank to be oxidized pretty well, and you want plants to be growing with any edge they can get so they're sucking up all the nutrients that the algae is growing off of. But you need to get some of the algae off by hand or it's just going to be a complete uphill battle all the time. So yeah, that is the advice I have. I hope that helps you, sir. Or ma'am. I guess Arrowhead Aquatics. I don't know. So, yeah, other than that, I was trying to think if I have any parting words about the power going out and keeping things warmer. Uh, you can always crank up the heat a little bit before it goes out on you if you have a feeling you're going to lose it. Oh, I've got a buried blue shrimp back there. A blue-berried shrimp right over here. Uh, so, yeah, I should actually turn the lights off on this tank again since it is in quarantine. I wanted to show, oh, you guys can't see the color difference, but this shrimp is like a nice pink reddish color to it, whereas the other Malawas range from brown to black to orangey to blue, like in clear. So Malawa shrimp, one that's not common in the hobby, but one that I love and that eats lots of algae. You can see it eating the algae up there right now. And they kind of just like you put 10 in your tank, like get 8 or 10, and you can see he's literally eating that string algae, or she, you can see the saddle, the orange saddle, literally eating that string of algae right now. Might as well just come out the other end as plant food. So, all right, guys. Wish me well. Hopefully, power doesn't go out too bad. Wow, you can see that tree. Since I started going live, has even come down more. It's like almost touching that car now. And I can hear the birds chirping, so daylight is on its way, although that is not a reprieve for us. That is more snow. So I'm up here on this hill, and the wind is gonna definitely bring down those branches. All right, guys. I hope that you all have a great day. Why I look crazy right now. It is, I think it's about 30, or no, about 28 degrees right now in my neighborhood, but in the other side of Seattle, it might be 24, and the other side from that might be 35. We're right at sea level in some parts of the city, and at like 600 feet in others. So, all right, guys. Well, take it easy. I just thought this was a good time to live stream randomly and let you know that if you don't hear from me for a little while, it's because the power is not on. So wish me luck and good luck to all of you in the Northwest. Check out my other video about precautions for power outages with your fish, and hopefully it helps a little bit. All right, guys, I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.